Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Healing Home. I'm your host, Michelle, and today I am honored to welcome Dr. Judy Morgan into The Healing Home to discuss the importance of acupuncture, chiropractic, and holistic care for pets. Now, a little bit from Dr. Judy's bio. Dr. Judy Morgan has over 39 years' experience as an integrative veterinarian, acupuncturist, chiropractor, food therapist, author, and speaker. Dr. Morgan owned and operated two veterinary clinics and offered an integrative approach combining holistic medicine with traditional Western techniques. Her goal is to change the lives of over 10 million pets by educating and empowering pet owners worldwide in the use of natural healing therapies and minimizing the use of chemicals, vaccinations, and poor quality processed food. She's also the host of the Naturally Healthy Pets podcast on YouTube. And I would like to, without further ado, welcome Dr. Judy into the Healing Home. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Judy.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you for the invitation. I'm happy to be here.
How are you doing today?
Doing well, thank you.
Great. So before we get started, I want to give you also an opportunity to introduce yourself in any way you'd like to. And could you let us know how you first got interested in veterinarian care and what led you to the path of becoming a veterinarian?
Well, it actually has been a dream of mine since childhood. When I was in 8th grade, my show pony was no longer, ninth grade. My show pony was no longer able to be shown or ridden. He was very lame and arthritic. And we were at the point of considering having to put him down. And my riding instructor's daughter was a veterinarian who came home for the summer, an equine veterinarian. And she said to me, well, we could try a procedure that was fairly new at the time where the nerves to the front feet are actually cut so that the feet are kind of numb. And she said it won't make him rideable, but it will make it so he could be turned out in the field, in the pasture, to spend the rest of his years with his pasture mates. And we said, wow, that would be amazing. So we just needed to cover the cost of the supplies, and she was willing to do the surgery. And we did it in the field at the farm, and she let me help. And I was blown away. My pony lived for another 2 years out in the field, trotting around with all of his pasture buddies. And to me, that was we saved a life, and it was a miracle. And I said, "This is it. This is what I want to do." My life was forever changed at that moment because I was incredibly focused all through high school. I did my undergrad college in 3 years instead of four, because I was just determined that I wanted to get out and get started. So that's how I became interested in veterinary medicine. My mother grew up on a farm, so she has always loved animals. My father, not so much, but he tolerated what we brought home. So I think my love for the animals came from her. But my passion for the career started with that pony.
That's a beautiful story. It's always so cool to hear people's origin stories, especially when it happens as a young child. We all have those things that pop up, whether it be in school or it was just something that naturally came that we just know deep down. And it's funny sometimes, even the things that you had inklings towards that you maybe didn't fully pursue as a career, but they always end up showing up in some way. And it's really just cool because I've actually found your work through Jonna Devereaux, who I interviewed a handful of months ago now, maybe a couple months ago. And you guys had a really wonderful conversation on diets for food or diets for pets and the importance of alternating things. And she brought me to your information. And I've just been really in awe of what you've done over the years and your practice in general. And so I really would like to talk a little bit about integrative veterinarian care, because some people out there might not be familiar with this term. So if you could, for people who might not know what that means, could you describe what it means to be an integrative veterinarian and what that looks like in the modern era?
Sure. So when I graduated from veterinary school 40 years ago, um, we didn't talk about anything integrative at all. Everything was very, very, very traditional. And I went to a school in the Midwest, so very traditional. And I practiced traditional medicine, so vaccinations and prescription diets and all kinds of medications and chemicals for my patients for the first 10 years. And then I accidentally took a chiropractic course. It was called veterinary orthopedic manipulation. That doesn't sound like chiropractic to me. So when I signed up for it, I didn't know what I was getting in for. And within a couple of hours in the first day of classroom work, I went, I think this guy's talking about chiropractic. I don't even know if I believe in this. Like, this is very weird to me. Um, but I will say that I had been to a chiropractor twice in my life prior to that. And it was because when I was pregnant for my first child, he was sitting on my sciatic nerve and I couldn't walk. My leg would just collapse. And so I literally was carried into a chiropractor in my ninth month of pregnancy because I couldn't bear weight on my leg. And after the chiropractor adjusted me, I skipped out of the office going, wow, that's the coolest thing ever. Like, yesterday I couldn't walk and now I can like run around, 9 months pregnant. But um, so in the back of my mind, I was like, well, this stuff probably works, but for animals, like, wait, what? Um, so that was my introduction into something alternative, something other than mainstream traditional medicine. And I started using it immediately in my practice, and it was just life changing, because I saw such huge differences in my patients. And then, of course, I had to go through the whole guilt thing of, if I had known this sooner, I could have saved so many animals that couldn't walk or were having back problems, all these gait and mobility issues. So once I kind of got over that and said, okay, we can only move forward from here, I started looking at what else is available. And so I studied all kinds of things. I got into homeopathy and raindrop therapy and essential oils and light therapy, color therapy. And then I discovered traditional Chinese medicine. And that encompasses acupuncture, Tuina, which is sort of a combo massage chiropractic, food therapy, which is my true love, and herbal therapy. So after dabbling in a lot of different things, I sort of found the path that I really wanted to follow. So my very, very traditional practice, suddenly we were incorporating, or I was incorporating, these new things. My staff was kind of like, what are we doing here? And my partner, I actually had a business partner, another veterinarian. We owned the clinic together, and he owned another clinic up the street. And after I really started getting into this stuff, he said, I don't quite understand the voodoo and black magic that you're doing, and I'm not sure I believe in it, and I don't really think I want to be a part of this. So we amicably parted ways. I bought out his part of the practice. And from that point on, my practice was truly integrated. I love surgery. Well, surgery is not an alternative therapy. This is traditional Western medicine technique. So that was a big part of my practice. But we started moving away from chemicals, away from the over vaccination, away from the drugs and overuse of antibiotics and chemicals, and started looking for more natural ways to be able to deal with whatever issues were coming up, and really started looking at things from a different perspective. Instead of treating symptoms, which is really what Western medicine is all about. Oh, you have an itch? Here, take an antihistamine, take a steroid. That'll stop the itch. Stopping the itch doesn't solve what's causing the itch. It doesn't solve what the body's reaction is to whatever is going on. So we really started looking at things from a very different perspective, from the point of, how do I get the body to heal? How do I get the entire animal to get comfortable in its own skin again? So whether that's, arthritis, pancreatitis, diabetes, allergies, whatever the issue is, looking at how can we use all of our different modalities. And really, by having chiropractic and acupuncture and herbs and food and all these other things, it just meant there's more tools in my toolbox. So I was just able to offer a lot more. And I have this firm belief that everything happens in life the way it's supposed to happen. And every patient that came to me taught me something. Every animal I ever adopted taught me something. They came to me with their own little bag of tricks, like, you need to learn about this. so so that's what integrated is. It's taking the kind of the best of both worlds, putting them together. And because listen, I have said for a long time, if I walk out in traffic and somebody hits me, I want some really good pain meds. Like, I want some real drugs right now.
Right.
I'll figure out how to heal everything in the long run. But so I think that traditional medicine is really good for an acute problem. Like, boom, you got pounded. Let's, figure out how we can calm that down right now. But for chronic disease, Western medicine is really awful. Really awful. But alternative medicine, complementary. I don't even like to call it alternative. I like to call it complementary because we're integrating. Um, gives you so many tools that are so much better for chronic issues because we're not just treating symptoms, we're trying to solve the problem.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with your assessment on Western medicine and its place and its importance. And as somebody who is an herbalist and who likes to look at things from a holistic perspective and typically also incorporates the emotional side of
Oh,
ailments.
absolutely.
Right. And
But
as in your
we need
experience,
the animals. If you don't incorporate that emotional and spiritual aspect, you miss the boat. Um, so for instance, somebody gets a really earth-shattering diagnosis on their pet. Your pet has something that can't be cured. Their life expectancy is X. So they've been time stamped. People start to grieve immediately. And so we get a lot of people who get really stuck in that grief way before they really need to be grieving. Um, and when they get stuck there, it has an effect on the animal's ability to enjoy life, get the most out of whatever time period is left. Plus, I hate the timestamps because nobody's crystal ball works. Um, so I have Cavalier King Charles Spaniels and English Toy Spaniels. They are a breed that um, very commonly has heart disease. It's genetically just kind of built into them. So some of them will start developing a murmur and heart disease and heart failure pretty early on, as one of mine started at 4 years old. So some of them start very early. And every time they go to the cardiologist and get their echocardiogram, I'll get the life expectancy for this is only 6 to 12 months. One of them went into stage D, which is the last stage of the heart disease. And so the cardiologist is a good friend of mine, been going to him for 35 years. And so when I took this particular dog in, he said, "Oh, I'm really sorry. He's in stage D. Most you have is 2 to 3 months." And I went, "Okay, thank you." And then he said, "You're going to go home and do whatever voodoo you do, right?" And I said, "Oh yeah, you better believe I am." And 2 years later, I sent him a text message and said, "Hey, my dog that you gave 2 to 3 months is still here. You want to give him a new date?"
no, man, I love that. Oh, go ahead, finish your thought. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, so, it's just I don't like giving them a date. I don't like giving them a timestamp. I don't like to put people into grief way before they need to be in grief. Yes, we do need to prepare ourselves emotionally and mentally, but we also have to be emotionally available to help our animals through their healing process. And like my dog, I could have just shut down and said, "Oh my gosh, I've only got 2 months. What am I going to do?" And we had one with cancer, the only dog I ever did chemo because there was no chance of survival. With chemo, we got 8 weeks, but there was no chance of survival with what she had. And so I allowed myself to be talked into the chemo, which I'm not doing that again. But instead of being in grief, and she was the best dog. But instead of being in grief, we made a bucket list and we woke up every morning and my husband and I, all of our dogs in bed with us. And every day we'd look at her and say, "Myra, what's on our agenda today? What is it that Myra wants to do today? And she also got to choose a buddy to go on whatever adventure we were going on. So we went on shopping trips. We went to parks. We went out to lunch and ordered her turkey burgers without a bun. And we just every day it was, what does Myra want to do that is going to be fun and enhance her life today, instead of already being in that, oh my gosh, I've got this really short little window. I remember 4 weeks into chemo, they declared her tumor free, cancer free. We went home, we had champagne, we celebrated. A week later, we went back, she had 3 new tumors.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so it is definitely a roller coaster, but I kind of have this deal with myself that I don't cry in front of my pets. If I'm grieving, I go grieve somewhere else, and then when I'm with them, if they have something really serious going on, it's like, nope, we're gonna do something fun, because it really is important to keep their routine, and keep moving forward with them, because they don't have that preconceived notion of, oh, I'm gonna die tomorrow. For them, it's like, what are we doing today?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And that's one of the beautiful things about pets is that they have the ability to be in the present moment. Whereas with
yes,
us humans, it's much harder for us to stay in that mindset, which I think is one of the reasons why Western medicine has established this diagnosis, driven medicine of the life expectancy stuff. And I'm kind of a firm believer of thinking that the diagnostic shock of something like that is actually the death sentence that people get is when they hear that 6 months, then automatically that is set in their mind that that's
yeah, they're
happening
dialed
and
in.
they make it a reality. And instead of allowing like what you did to say, okay, great, I'm going to be open to this, but knowing that there's possibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and I really love hearing your philosophy. We need more. There are a lot more people like yourself popping up, I feel like. Obviously, you've been in this industry a long time. Lots of things, I'm sure you've seen a lot of things change. But I want to now transition into the acupuncture and chiropractic care that you were offering in your practice, because I don't think a lot of people know if they're not hip to holistic care, they might not know that chiropractic and acupuncture is even an option for pets. So, can you go through what that was like introducing that to your clientele? And then also some of the, yeah, exactly, some of the success stories that you have off the top of your head of just seeing this work for pets either almost instantly or over the course of some sessions that they had with you?
So I have two really cool chiropractic stories. The first one is the first pet I ever used it on. Well, actually, I practiced on my horses first. And so I have three stories. So my kid's pony, that we had bought, it was a show pony. He had been a driving pony. So when they're driving, they're in a harness and their head is in a set position, and they have a what's called a check rein, so they can't drop their head, they can't really raise their head. So they're in a set position, and so we used them as a driving pony, but also as a riding pony. So I was like, well, I got to practice on somebody. So I'm going to practice on our horses to start, and my mom's dog. Um, and so I adjusted this pony, and all of a sudden, the pony was like, oh, oh. And I said, oh my gosh, he has never put his head up in the 2 years we had owned him. His head had never changed position. He couldn't. He
Wow.
was absolutely stuck. One adjustment, not stuck anymore. And so I was like, oh my God. And this is like in between my class days, I'm practicing this stuff. And I went, so my mom's dog, she had a standard schnauzer, 50-pound dog. And my mom said, oh gosh, I have to lift her in the car all the time. My mom's this little tiny person. So I said, okay, well, let me adjust the dog, and then we'll go open the car door and see if she can get in. So I adjusted the dog. We go out in the garage. We open the car door. The dog jumps in the back seat, jumps to the front seat, jumps over back to the back seat, jumps back to the. And I went, okay, that was neat. My mom's like, guess I don't have to lift her up anymore. That was pretty cool. So my very first actual client who came in with a dog, it was a 95-pound German Shepherd. The little old man, hunched over little old man with his cane, pulls in the driveway and walks in the front door and says, I need help getting my dog out of the car. He can't walk. 95-pound shepherd. Okay. So the staff goes out with a stretcher. They bring the dog in. And the old man says to me, I think he has arthritis. And I just looked at him and I said, sir, do you have arthritis? And he goes, oh, I got bad arthritis. I got this cane. I'm all hunched over. And I said, okay, well, you have arthritis and you could walk yesterday and you can still walk today. Your dog was running around yesterday and today he can't walk. I don't think this is arthritis. I think we got something more going on. So I said, look, I just took this course on chiropractic. I'm going to do it on your dog. I'm also going to give him an injection of steroids because that's what we always did at the time, which the steroids were going to take 24 hours to work. And so I adjusted the dog and I went out in the room to make up a prescription for the dog. And I turn around and I see the dog run down the hall past the pharmacy. And I did the double take. And then I looked at my technician and I said, what'd you do to the dog? And she said, I didn't touch the dog. And I went, huh, that chiropractic thing worked.
Wow.
So, and then my aunt came in, she had a little tiny Maltese, and the dog went to jump on the sofa and it missed and it head slammed into the arm of the sofa instead. She brings it in to me. It's this little tiny thing. And this dog was really crippled. It had just really bashed its spine. So we did the steroid thing and she was coming in every few days. And then the dog reacted very poorly to the steroids, got a stomach bleed. And I said, oh, crap, we can't do this anymore. So, and my aunt, very traditional, small town. And so I had the dog in the back of the hospital away from my aunt and uncle. And I said, you know what, I'm going to try this chiropractic thing on this dog. So I did. And I put the dog on the floor and it was running around perfectly normal. Well, then I felt bad because I had already wasted a month of fooling around with drugs that made the dog worse. And so I opened the door and the dog flew out to the front of the hospital to my aunt. And she goes, what'd you do? And I said, I hate to tell you this, I did chiropractic on your dog. She's like, that's so cool. And I went, huh. So, I mean, these are the kind of stories, like it's instant. It's just, you know, when I'm all crippled up and my back is out of whack and I've got sciatic pain, first thing I do is I call my chiropractor and say, can I come over right now? And, you know, it's sort of like my pregnancy thing. It's like I hobble in and then I go skipping out. And so why did I think it was going to be different for my patients? I don't know. So it, for anybody who has an animal that's limping, that has had back issues, that has chronic pain, and chiropractic is not only for joints and mobility. Basically what we're doing is taking the spine, which is kind of locked in place, and between every set of vertebrae, nerves and blood vessels come out. Well, if the vertebrae gets stuck and they're pinching down on the nerves and the blood vessels, well, everything that is supplied by the nerves and blood vessels from that area is going to be affected. So constipation, it's a spinal problem. You know, a lot of gut issues are spinal problems. A lot of ear infections that we see in dogs are spinal problems up in the neck. So we see a lot of things that we can heal that are not, that we wouldn't normally just go, oh, well, that's a spinal problem. A lot of times having chiropractic adjustment can help with other chronic issues that are going on, because we need to get the blood flow and the nerve flow really moving to the areas where it needs to go. So a lot of the tendon and ligament tears that we see in particularly the dogs are related to problems in the spine. And then the hardest thing is finding a veterinarian who does chiropractic. So there is a website, ahvma.org, which is the American Holistic Veterinary Medical Association. You can go on there and put in your state, and it'll bring up every veterinarian who is in the AHVMA in your state. And it'll also say what they do, whether they do acupuncture, chiropractic, nutritional therapy, herbs, whatever. So that's a really good resource for people to see if there's somebody in their area. Interestingly, I had a doctor in my practice that learned acupuncture and chiropractic care. And when the practices split, when my partner, I bought him out and he went back to his clinic 5.5 miles up the road, this doctor that had stayed with me ended up moving back to the other clinic. And so that was an 8-doctor clinic, and no one there knew that she did chiropractic and acupuncture. Clients from that clinic were coming to me to get chiropractic and acupuncture. I'm like, they do have somebody there that does that. The problem was the other 7 doctors didn't believe in it. They were very, very, very traditional. And so none of them would say to their client standing in the exam room, well, yeah, we have a doctor here that could maybe help. And so the clients are out looking for it on their own, finding me 5 miles down the road. And then I'm telling them that they could go ahead and get it there. 99% of the time they stayed with me because, they'd come in and we'd get working and they'd be like, oh, this is so cool and it's working. And, so they'd stay. But so it's really kind of interesting that there are kind of people hidden that do those things. So sometimes if you're in a bigger practice, if you ask, is there anybody here who does this? There might be somebody hiding out there that does that, that they just don't talk about. It's sort of like, oh, there's black magic over there. We didn't need.
Those are great tips, and there's so many little hidden lessons within what you just talked about. Firstly, I have to say how people's limited scope of the world can really be so prohibitive. Hearing that there's literally a person in that same office that could have helped somebody, that's just wild. It just kind of goes to show how important it is to have an open mind and trying to, at least, if you don't have to 100% believe in everything that everyone else does, but to at least have an open enough mind to think that, well, hey, if this person wants to try it, you might as well do it. I
Well, and
also
from
think,
a business standpoint, keep your client in your building.
right? Oh my goodness. The other thing I think is really interesting that you talked about, both of the dogs that you treated with the chiropractic, them running straight away. Like, imagine all the pent up energy they had as a dog. I'm more of a cat lady, but I've also grown up around dogs since I was a little girl, and seeing how much energy dogs have, how much exercise they require. It's very, very important to be attentive to that, to think that they're pent up because they have a spinal issue or whatever, to think of all that energy probably just all at once, just jolting through their body, and they almost just have to run. That's really interesting.
So I have adjusted tons of cats over the years. One of the cat diseases that works so well with chiropractic is feline hyperesthesia syndrome, which basically they'll be sitting still or walking along, and all of a sudden they turn around and look at their back, and then they take off running. I had one who used to do it. She'd be halfway up the stairs, and then she would just stop, bite her back, and race. Um,
Wow.
so
Okay.
it's a nerve pinch. And
Ah.
I've cured so many cats with chiropractic. Some of them we use acupuncture as well. Chiropractic and acupuncture are 2 modalities that go together so incredibly well. Um, so when we're doing acupuncture, one of the things that we do, it's a lot of hands-on feeling for areas where an acupuncture point is active or not active, or actually suppressed. And so when I would go over the animals with my hands, I would pick out my areas. Okay, we're going to have to put needles in here and here and here. And I would do their chiropractic adjustment, and the acupuncture and the chiropractic agree 100% of the time. So you could get away with doing one or the other. Sometimes we do the 2 together, depending on how serious the issue is, and also how much time you have and how much money you have. Chiropractic is definitely less expensive than acupuncture because it takes less time. Acupuncture, usually they sit with the needles in for 15 to 30 minutes. Whereas chiropractic, you can do that and be done in 5-10 minutes.
I hope you're enjoying today's episode. I still have available my Radiant Solstice Remedies from my last full moon offering, Radiant Glow Cleansing Grains, Fresh Yarrow Tincture, and Mugwort Flower Essence, which all can be found over at michelleshealinghome.com. Now, back to the show. Interesting. Again, everything being connected to, and how we are electrical beings as our
Yes.
animals. And so that to me makes a lot of sense. And a question that just popped up when you're talking about the acupuncture, do you typically give the animals something to calm them, or like, I would assume they just will kind of lay down and allow you to
They
do the
usually fall
process?
asleep. They usually
Wow.
fall asleep. They love it. I've had some that react really violently, because we put a needle into somewhere that is just really sensitive. That was a
Mm.
really hot area, especially in horses. Standing on the end of the lead line while the horse is hopping around bucking. It's like, okay, that was a sensitive spot. But most of them fall asleep. So, and there are different personalities of animals. So, you have to, from Chinese medicine, we have 5 different personality types, and being able to look at the personality type and say, okay, well, that one's a wood personality. That one's going to be more reactive. So when I have those reactive animals, it might mean I'm getting 2 or 3 needles in, maybe only one. So you choose wisely. And there actually is a whole branch of acupuncture that is single needle acupuncture, where you just pick that one point and that's the one you're going to treat. Um, so there are some animals we get 2 or 3. The most needles I ever put in, my Doberman had something called Wobbler's disease, which is a problem with the spinal cord. And he acutely went down, paralyzed on all 4. So he
Wow.
chiropractic and acupuncture every day for a week, and then was up running around again. But he was the one I put the most needles in, and he was getting 60-ish needles at each treatment. But we got him up and going, so it totally worked.
That's amazing. It was my grandma, she had really good success treating, well, having a veterinarian treat her Dalmatian with acupuncture. And this was a good like 15 years ago. So I was so glad that my gran was even open to it. I was surprised. I remember she did her research, and this was in Wisconsin. And she did her good research and she found this out, and she took Monty, and it helped him so much. It gave him a few extra years of life. I really
Yeah,
think so. And ever since then, now
absolutely.
she's a firm believer in acupuncture. So she does it herself and she understands the whole thing. At 89 years old, she's still open enough to realize that things change and there's all these options out there.
Good for her.
Um, I know, isn't it awesome? It's just so cool to see people open up to this stuff and be okay with it. And then it's always too, when people see results, that's typically obviously always the best sales method, is you give
Oh,
someone results, you know?
absolutely. I mean, clients who would come in with their animals and they would have this kind of success, they're going to tell everybody they know. Like,
Right.
my dog couldn't walk yesterday, and look at him go. Um, so, that, and they're not all that way. There are some where we have more deep seated problems that's not going to solve the issue. Um, but I'm always willing to try. And, sometimes I'd get people that, "Oh, well, he's been paralyzed for 5 years." Okay, well, I'm not gonna hold my breath on this one, but let's see if we can get anything. Um, and I had one client that her dog had been down for a long time, and she brought him in for chiropractic and acupuncture, electrostim, um, a lot. And it definitely made a difference for him. Uh, he had blown out discs in his back, so he couldn't urinate on his own, which means, holding the dog up, expressing the bladder. And so if we would keep up with his acupuncture and chiropractic, he would be able to get his bladder released much more easily. And we actually started getting twitching back in his toes and his tail, which was pretty amazing after being down for years. So I'm willing to, when I was in practice, I was willing to give them a try. I think that we have nothing to lose and everything to gain.
Yep, I would agree. And one of the things that I really want to ask you about, because it's something I've noticed, I had been treating our cat Carl for he just passed away last May. He was 18, and he had a lot of chronic upper respiratory issues. Like, he had been diagnosed with the kitty herpes like a long time ago, and then he had
Right.
asthma. So I was always just doing all I could with diet, herbs, natural remedies, and I had a lot of success because a cat like him, he would have been given steroids and it would have kind of been the slow decline, and I never wanted to take that route. So I on my own did a lot of research, and that was my path into herbalism, was through him, because I was really wanting to help him herbally and naturally. But one of the things I've noticed over that whole course of time is that pets seem to really respond well to Eastern medicine traditions. So, as you said, you found Chinese medicine. Then we have Ayurveda, which is also kind of with
Mhm.
the dojas. And I think that there's something to be said about this. So, I wanted to kind of talk to you about this, get your opinion on why you think that's the case and where has Western medicine really severely gone wrong by eliminating these other sides of traditions that are looking deeper into the constitutions, the tissue states. There is a part of Western herbalism that looks at the 6 tissue states, which is very similar to this. So where you have like moisture levels, you have tone of the tissues, and then you have temperature. Are we cold? Are we dry? Are we, all these things. And so I just wanted to kind of throw that at you and see what you have to say, because I think it's really interesting. And I think people in general also respond very well to the Eastern traditions of medicine, but
Mhm.
animals in particular, I think too, because they cannot tell us right off the bat what is wrong. So we have to use our spidey senses a lot of times and really pay attention to their habits, to what they're doing, what's changing, how they're feeling, all these things. So please have the floor on that one because I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Well, they don't lie, for one thing, and they don't have any preconceived notion. I mean, either they're limping or they're not. Either they're
Right.
walking or they're not. They're eating or they're not. One of the best ways to figure out what your pet needs is letting them self-select. So, for instance, there's a great cat person in England who makes um, herb packages. So, there's an herb package for anxiety, for aggression, for changes in the home. And so each pack has 10 different herbs that could help with anxiety or could help with aggression. And they're dried herbs. And so what we do is we put them out on a towel or a mat in little piles and then let our cats go to that mat. And it was really interesting the first time I did it with my cats. One of them sat there and chowed down on one of the piles of herbs, and then she went around, she found another one that she really liked, she was rolling in it and just like, "This is my thing." There were others that she tried to bury them, like, get them out of the way, and so if we let them self-select, they will often choose what their remedy needs to be. We can also do muscle testing and other things for that. My dogs, I love to grow herbs. I love to grow flowers. Uh, and I have pots of herbs all over my patio, in my flower beds, like herbs everywhere. And it's really interesting because I'll sit outside with my dogs and I just watch them go around and stick their face into each plant. And like the other day, 2 of them were chowing down on my lemon balm. I'm like, little GI upset today. Okay. you know, and so one of my Dobermans, I was trying to plant yarrow. I'd put a plant in, he'd pull it out and eat it. I'd put another one in, he'd pull it out. I gave up. I just fed him all the yarrow. It's like, all right, guess you needed that today. So it's just a lot of time they know what they need. Frankly, I think we know what we need too. We just ignore it. We don't pay attention to it. Like, do you ever get a craving? Like, oh my gosh, I just want to go eat a cucumber right now. It's like, yeah, maybe I need something that's moisturizing and cooling, and maybe it's 95 degrees outside and humid, and I really need something to drain and cool me off. Okay, watermelon, cucumber, So we just don't listen.
Right. Yeah. I love that the self-select method. That's
It is
really
so cool.
cool. Oh my
It is
gosh,
really
and
cool.
I've talked about this before with our cat too. He was the same way. For whatever reason, rosemary was his thing. He would find the rosemary plants in one of the houses we lived in. There was the rosemary just was so prolific, and he would go right to it. As soon as I would take him outside, he was there. He was rolling in it. He was chewing on it. So I knew then, I'm like, all right, buddy wants rosemary. So every once in a while, rosemary tea, he would enjoy that, and that was one of his remedies that I knew, and it made sense with the ailments that he had as well, that would be something that he would need. So you're totally right in the sense that they know, and they actually are able to listen and not ignore it because they know
Yep.
better.
Yeah. When we used to do a lot of chiropractic on the horses, I would always have two essential oils with me. One was lavender, and I think the other one was rosemary. And so I would hold each bottle, opened bottle, in my hand and let the horses sniff each one separately. And they would always choose one of them that they wanted as their calming that we would apply before we would start their chiropractic adjustments or their acupuncture. And it's really funny because they don't like both. It's always one or the other, and it's a very strong, like, that one is not me, and this one is me. So we just don't give our animals enough options. I think if we did, like, if you have dogs, take your dog on a loose leash walk through the forest and fields and see what they gravitate toward. It's really just let them have, you're not going for a walk to get exercise. You're going on a smell tour to see what it is that they think they need or want. They may find something dead to roll in it. They'll have a good time. You won't, but but it's really. I just love letting them select what they want. For people who have horses, you should plant hedgerows with all different kinds of plants and herbs and things in them because the horses will self-select as well.
Yeah, I love this. And, I think too that a lot of people were kind of conditioned to not give animals options because a lot of people are brought up, or you hear the rhetoric of, oh, they're just a cat, oh, they're just a dog, they're just a horse, a rabbit, whatever it is. And it's one of my pet peeves, no pun intended, because it's like, no, they know so much more than they're given credit for. And they, like us, have been kind of put into this system, for better or for worse, where, okay, we give them kibble, they're fine. You put a water dish down, what else do they need? And I think a lot of people will think, oh, well, there's all this frou-frou stuff out there or whatever. It's like, well, it's not frou-frou, it's necessary.
Yeah.
Because once you really dive into more of the natural holistic side of pet care, you realize actually how simple a lot of this stuff is. It's just that we don't know about it. You don't know off the cuff because we're not taught to know. So I'm always wanting to encourage people to look into this, because there's some people out there that are skeptical about holistic pet care, or holistic human care for that matter. So if there's people out there who aren't familiar with this, what's some of the top tips that you would have for them to start opening themselves up to this? Where's a good place for people to start when it comes to holistic care and not being overwhelmed with all the options that they feel like they might have?
Well, and that's part of the problem because there are so many options. Like I said, after I took the chiropractic, I was like, oh my gosh, there's more out there, and I went 100 directions at once, and I finally just kind of went, oh my gosh, I can't learn all this. I can't be an expert in all of this. I'm going to find the one thing that that is my main focus, which for me is food therapy, because love I love how much it does for our animals. Um, and that would be my first tip for people who are looking to improve the health and well-being and longevity of their pets, is to get some fresh food in the bowl. I know your veterinarians love to tell you that you can only feed that dry kibble and it has to be 100% complete and balanced and blah, blah, blah. You can't add anything else. And people food will kill them. There's no such thing as people food. There's food. And the animal feed, aka kibble and highly processed food, is not food, it is feed. It is not good stuff. And we have great longevity studies with just replacing 25 to 30% of the kibble in the bowl or highly processed food in the bowl with fresh food will increase lifespan by about 30%. It's kind of amazing. There was a great study done at Purdue with a litter of 15 Labradors, however many there were, and they just split them in two groups. And one group got kibble only, and the other group got a third of their kibble removed and replaced with fresh food, so fresh veggies and fruits and meats. And the ones with the fresh food lived an average of 3 years longer than the ones who were only fed highly processed food. It's sort of like if we only eat at fast food restaurants and eat all prepackaged, high salt, high fat, high sugar food, our lifespan is not going to be as good as somebody who's eating organic, fresh, freshly prepared foods. This is just a huge difference in health span. It's not even lifespan, it's health span, like being healthy longer. Um, so that would be my first tip for people is like just get some fresh food to your animals. Second, uh, really start reading. So if you're new to this, I think my best two books on this are Raising Naturally Healthy Pets. And the very first book that I wrote is From Needles to Natural. And that one, like the story of me with my pony, is in there. Um, and it kind of goes through my journey of one, wanting to be a veterinarian, getting into vet school, but then going from traditional to holistic, and the different things that I was discovering that are available and how they work. Um, you could talk to, if you're in a traditional veterinary practice, you can talk to your veterinarian if you're interested in things that are outside the box. And what I usually find is the people who are going to start looking for something outside the box are the people who are really sick of the chronic medications, the chronic, it's not getting better, the chronic allergies, the chronic IBD, um, people with pets with chronic problems that they've thrown boatloads of money at. They're not seeing improvement. The animal is still struggling with whatever the problem is, whatever inflammation is going on. Those are usually the people who are most open to, I got to find something else because this isn't working. What's the definition of insanity? Keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Results aren't going to change. So start asking around, ask your friends, go online, go to the ahvma.org and see if there's a holistic vet in your area. A lot of holistic veterinarians do online consultations, which can at least help steer you in a right direction for what you might be looking for. Um, there's just so much out there, and there actually are quite a few human chiropractors who will work on animals. Um, I'm on the I have plus and minus feelings about that because our biomechanics are so different. So we have this big bowling ball that sits on the top of our spine. Our pets have a bowling ball that hangs off the end of their spine. Those totally different
Yes.
forces. With us, we have compressive problems. With them, it's totally different. Um, and then particularly if you have animals that are really athletic, if you're doing some of these really high impact sports, I would strongly recommend looking into getting somebody on board that can help keep your animal in tip top shape so that you don't get those torn ligaments. There are sports medicine veterinarians out there now that do a lot of these modalities. And I think it's, if you have a high level sports competitive animal, I think it would definitely be worth looking into that sort of thing.
Yeah, these are all great tips, and it's all about maintenance. I mean, it's all about preventative medicine. And that's the other thing I love about herbs and holistic care is that it's about making sure you're taking care of yourself consistently and not waiting, like you said, until it's that moment where something happens. And everyone knows what it feels like to be in that spot because we've all been there where you're not taking care of yourself as much. And all of a sudden you come down with something or you get sick, and then you have to take 2 weeks to heal, or you really have to slow things down where you could have just been slowly taking care of yourself over
Yep.
time. And then maybe you felt not so good for a day and then you came back pretty quick. And the same thing is the case with the animals. And I love that you suggested your books too. I also want to make sure people know that you are the creator of supplements for pets. And is it right that you also have a food brand as well, or did you
It's
just like work on making foods with someone else?
Yeah, so it's someone else manufactures them. Someone that
Okay.
a company that I love. It's called All Provide. They're out of Georgia. They have their own facility where they make the food. It's all human grade ingredients, actually restaurant grade ingredients. Organic. The Dirty Dozen. If the fruits and veggies in there are in the Dirty Dozen, they're organic. Um, And so one of my things that I do is I do food therapy. So, for instance, when I was first learning this, I had gone to the grocery store, and at the time I had two Dobermans and a Rottweiler. And so I said, well, I'm going to put this to the test. So from my grocery bag, I took some raw meat and put it in one place on the floor. And I took some veggies and put them in another place. And I cut open a watermelon and put that in another place. And some eggs, like I had all these things spread around my kitchen. And then I let the dogs in and I said, I'm going to see what they do. Now, everybody would say, okay, well, you got two Dobermans and a Rottweiler. You got hamburger on the floor. They are going for the meat. Watermelon. They went straight for the watermelon and chowed down. Now, this is way above the level we're talking, but they were all wood personalities, which they're a little cranky and they tend to have internal heat and they get liver chi stagnation, which is energy stuck in the middle. It makes them kind of aggressive. And watermelon is great at calming that down. And so, no meat, they wanted watermelon. And again, it's that self selection thing. So I love to design diets for individual pets. So right now I have 5 dogs. They don't all eat the same thing. Everybody has different supplements, different herbs, and different protein choices based on what their constitution, their personality, their medical issues, whatever they have going on. So, and I know people are thinking, oh my gosh, first of all, that she's crazy. She has 5 dogs. And second, she has 5 different meals for 5 dogs. But I'm treating them as individuals. And, my dogs are living into their late teens, like 18, 19. That's what I want to see everybody's pets doing. So I designed recipes based on, so my most famous one is called Pup Loaf, and we just got the trademark and came out with Cat Loaf, which they're both gently cooked, whole food and human grade food ingredients. And so All Provide was kind enough to say, we'll make those. That'd be cool. So then we just partnered to make my Constitutions line, which are for the different personalities. So there's a fire, metal, wood, water, and earth. And there's a pet personality quiz that you can take for you. We actually have a human personality quiz on our website on drjudymorgan.com if you want to figure out what you are. And then you can look at the interactions between the different personalities and go, well, that's why my husband and I fight over that. But, you can also see how your animals interact with each other based on what their personalities are. So, like, we have a little red dog who is a fire personality. Well, she's got a red coat. So they're usually the life of the party. And they're kind of like, okay, mouthy, I'm going to talk a lot. She is absolutely that. The other 4 are boys. She is absolutely the boss. And she doesn't have to say a word. Like, nobody messes with her. And she's not aggressive. She's never gone after anybody. They just know.
Yes.
So it's really cool to see the interaction. So that the Constitutions line was made, and it's not necessarily if you have a fire dog, you feed the fire food. You might need to feed the water food because water puts out fire. If their fire is too exuberant and you just need to calm it down a little bit, feed them the water diet. And we have all those interactions on the pet personality profile. All Provide has a big quiz where you can go through, and it's on their website, allprovide.com. It's fun. Like, a lot of people take the pet personality quiz for their pets just because it's fun. And you can see where things are out of balance. Like, oh my gosh, we always have infected ears. Why do we always have infected ears? Well, you've probably got a wood personality that's out of balance. So that's why I love food therapy so much, because I can cure problems by a change in the diet. And so All Provide, they're good friends. I trust them implicitly to do a good job. I spend a lot of time studying the pet food industry, and it's ugly out there. So, putting my faith and trust in somebody takes a lot. But it's just, we've been having a lot of fun with it. So it's really cool. They're in Norcross, Georgia. They actually have an open door policy. They're one of the only pet food companies I know that has an open door policy. You can go in and see how the food's made.
Oh, wow.
Pretty cool. Yeah, it's
That's
pretty cool.
awesome. Wow, that is so wonderful. I'm so glad we segued over into this because I too feel like just even for us humans, diet is so important and
It's
it
everything.
matters what's going on. And I love, love, love that you are into the constitutions and understanding that. And congratulations on having this all picked up by them. The other thing too that I saw on your website is that All Provide is sponsoring your conference that's coming up in October, right?
Yes. So this is huge. This has taken over a year to put together. It's a lot of work and a lot of money going into this, but it's been my dream for a lot of years to bring together some of the top, actually, the top holistic people in the pet space internationally. So we have Dr. Connor Brady coming in from Ireland, Dr. Barb Fougere coming in from Australia, Dr. Barbara Royal from the US, Drs. Steve and Karen Marsden from Canada, Dr. Peter Tobias from the Czech Republic, and Dr. Nick Thompson from the UK. They're all coming to this event to speak for 2 days, October 12th and 13th in Orlando, Florida. Our VIP tickets are sold out, but we do have a general admission ticket still available. We also handpicked 54 vendors in the natural health pet market. And we actually turned away a lot of people who wanted to be vendors because their products weren't up to the level that we would give to our own pets. I'm really picky about that. There can't be any feed grade ingredients. Everything has to be, you know, on the up and up, and the companies have to be good and have a lot of integrity as well. So All Provide jumped in as our platinum sponsors and are helping us bring this thing to life. And we're really excited about it. I think it's going to be so much fun. I can't wait to have all these internationally known, wonderful people. Most of them have written books. Having them in one place all together it's a dream come true for me.
Oh, that's wonderful. That congratulations. And man, that's exciting. When I saw that, I thought to myself, oh, what am I doing in October? Because there's I love to the food grade ingredients and keeping that in mind. People are slowly realizing that this is becoming a thing. The amount of people that already don't read the food labels of what they eat, let alone for their pets. I mean, I was the lady at the natural pet store spending 20 minutes when I'm looking at all of these ingredients and okay, there's sunflower oil. I don't know. There's potato. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's just like you don't even know what you don't know. But once you
Exactly.
know, that's the green light and you can really open it up for yourself and your pet. And so I just really want to thank you for coming on to the Healing Home and joining me and sharing your story, sharing some tips with people. And hopefully we're going to encourage more people to take this holistic path for their pets, because not only is it good for their pets, but it's good for you too, because your pet's going to be happier. Both of you are going to live stronger, longer, healthier lives, knowing that you're taking care of each other in that way. And I think that our animals really know these things. They pick up on it and they understand. And so there's such a change in their demeanor when you start to look at them as whole people, whole
Yeah,
individuals. And
absolutely.
I commend you for all the work you're doing. So thank you so much. But please let people know where they can find you. I will have all the links to your work and with All Provide down below. And please, if you have any parting words, bring them to the audience. And thank you
Yeah.
again.
So for people who are new to this and you're kind of like, oh my gosh, my head is spinning, on drjudyu.com, which you can get to through our regular website, drjudymorgan.com or drjudyU.com directly, we have a lot of courses. And a lot of the courses are by some of these experts that are coming in to speak at our event, by other holistic veterinarians. So if one of our most popular ones is Homemade Food for Dogs 101. You think you'd like to make your pet's food, but you don't know where to start, we've got a course on that. We've got a course for making food for your cats, how to transition your cat from a kibble diet, which is so bad for them, onto real food, things on pancreatitis, anxiety, clicker training, muscle testing. Like there's so many courses on there. So if you have a little time and want to start learning about, or if you have a pet who has chronic allergies, chronic pancreatitis, arthritis, we've got information either in blogs, videos. It's out there. We're on pretty much every social media platform. So whichever one's your favorite, just, look for Dr. Judy Morgan, and you'll just, we put out a lot of information because we just want to empower pet parents.
Beautiful. I also want to encourage people to check out your podcast, because you even have shows about like EMF and what that means for pets. These are some of the questions I've asked my guests in the past that they've thought about it, but they don't really even understand the implications that it's doing for us, and that pets have this stuff too. So you have a broad range of topics on your YouTube channel and through your podcast. So I want to encourage people to check that out as well. And thank you again so much for joining me, Judy. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of The Healing Home with Dr. Judy Morgan. Make sure to check her out. All of the links to her work are down below this video. michelleshealinghome.com for all things healing home. Thank you all so very much to the patrons out there. Patreon.com/thehealinghome if you'd like to join us over there on Patreon. A handbook for herbal and natural cat care is available on my website. $11 to download and have it for you and your furry friend. It will help you introduce herbs and natural remedies into your cat's life. And you can also sign up for my newsletter over at michelleshealinghome.com underneath the newsletter tab. And we have number 46 of my full moon offering newsletter, Radiant Solstice Remedies, fresh yarrow tincture, Radiant Glow cleansing grains, and my mugwort flower essence. If you want to learn more about these products, head to michelleshealinghome.com and go to the store tab. You can see my current menu up here on the screen with the prices, along with where you can find everything, michelleshealinghome.com. You can also contact me about custom or bulk orders. The next full moon offering newsletter is coming out on 7/21. And next week's episode is a to be announced, which will be on July 22nd at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time here at the Healing Home. Mario has released his Empress Symbolic Secrets video and session. You can find that over at symbolicstudies.com, where you can sign up for his membership there, or you can join him over on patreon.com/symbolic studies. Now, Symbolic Secrets is his Patreon and membership exclusive series of the major arcana of the tarot. He's doing deep dives into each of the major arcana cards, and he has been really pumped to be sharing this information with everybody. So make sure you check that out if you are interested in a deep dive in the tarot with Mario. And with all that said, that's going to do it for this week, folks. Thank you so much, as always, for joining me here at the Healing Home. Take care out there, and we'll see you soon.